important to have an European identity because it is a way to integrate, to eliminate the differences between people from different countries. So Europeans are all equal.
So, why do you think that it is important to talk about European identity here?
Well, I think because it's in the public debate. I'm not using too much European identity. I'm talking about European collective narratives, which I think is linked somehow to the wish to build a collective sense of Europeanness, and I think it's not automatically linked. So that's why I think it's important to at least say that the wish of a European collective narrative does not imply at all or automatically the sense to belong to Europe.
Okay, and so why was it important for you today to speak about the other collective memories that other countries can have?
Because I think we are too auto-centered when talking about European narratives, and we probably have each of us the feeling that our narratives are more important than other narratives, and probably also because if we talk about narratives, it's probably more important to gain knowledge about other narratives than to try to impose our own narratives. So.
Because when we make advocacy today for circular economy, it's not to saving money or only for ecology, which is already very important. It's not the point. But it is to create alliance between local people for heritage. Here we are more in the field of conservation of heritage,
Who am I? And we were talking about heritage and inheritage. And this is the first question that I ask myself. Do I feel European? Because this is an inheritage of my family. And I actually didn't even think about it. It's just something that was transmitted or given to me, It's not something that I've chosen. It's just something that that was my heritage. And so the first question I ask me is, what defines me? How did I build my identity? And so the first question I ask is that maybe it's because of my family background. I'm from French parents, French grandparents, French great-grandparents, and et cetera, et cetera. My family is quite wealthy, white, obviously. So maybe it's that. This is what defines me. Or maybe it's my nationality. So I was born in Paris, I'm Parisian, I'm French. I feel European, but I'm French mostly. Maybe it's my religion. I was raised in the Catholic religion with the Christian values. Also, as I'm French, I'm very secular, but still I have all this heritage of Christian values.
And most of the time when we go to the class, it's really interesting because it's also a moment when they can develop confidence to speak from themselves, to speak from their heritage, and to also notice that in a way they all have various histories, but they share the same experience of being in France as a foreigner.
So the way we create story of the European Union, story and memories of the European Union building based on a French way to display images, events on the timeline is also exemplified here, for example, in a very top-down way to display this history at the time of the former French presidency of the European Council of the European Union under Nicolas Sarkozy. And here is a timeline that has been displayed in 2010. And as you can see, the choice of the figures of the people who are on the timeline and the choice of people that are not on the timeline, it's very centered on a French-German cooperation, which is a very prominent way to display this narrative about how France did Europe with the Germans, excluding many other countries and figures, of course.
Moving on to Albania, we have as a member of the Archimute Tirana. And Tirana, of course, is a particularly interesting example because it exhibits examples of a lot of planned town development, city development in the 1930s when Albania was under the Italian fascist influence. So, for example, the Casa del Fascio in Tirana, which I believe is now part of the university, it's been reused as part of the university, built in 1939 to 42. But of course, also there are examples of architecture and urban planning which originates in the Hoxha regime. For example, the very famous Enza Hoxha Museum, as was meant to be, which was built in 1987 and 1988. So it has two different examples of architecture related to the regime.
I'm very happy to be here, and I think it was a very good session this morning, talking about various identities, talking about what it is to be European, what it is to be French within Europe, and trying to put this in perspective for our partners, obviously coming from countries that I don't know so much in terms of how do they feel European. I mean, I'm not sure how an Albanian person will feel European, how an Italian person will feel European, knowing that we are in very different contexts because, for example, France and Italy, they are already in the European Union. Macedonia and Albania, they would like to access the European Union, but at the end of the day, we are all in the European continent, so it's very interesting to see, also to compare perspective, I think, and to learn more. By learning more on the other, obviously you reflect on your own identity, which I think is a very key aspect of this project as well.
One of the things that I've learned and observed by working on the project Patrimoine en Partage is that dialogue is really important to make people to feel part of Europe and to feel confident about their legitimacy to speak on their own and of their own culture.
And that's why I think this project brings a lot of new insights, and I think after this project I will have a very good reflection as well on this notion of European identity.
Very interesting graffiti. When I check on internet, I found many things really similar of a lot of paintings thrown away on these buildings in order to show that some people are disapproving this. So the government tried to design a false Macedonian national identity with a direct link to entity. Some people may agree to that, but maybe some other, maybe the younger, are thinking it's a waste of money and it means nothing. But we should be careful. Maybe in a few years it will change, and that will be seen as a testimony of a period of the building of a new Macedonian identity. Maybe something will become, these things will become an heritage accepted by the whole country and also by all foreigners who will see that as a testimony of a strange period of the country.
The communist regime left a wide tangible and intangible legacy. Some of it is extremely easy to identify and recognize as being connected with the built environment in matter of architecture and urban planning, such as House of the People, an emblematic monumental building positioned in the axis of a major urban planning intervention that raised a fifth of the Bucharest Historic Center, today headquarters of the Romanian Parliament, despite its negative connotation. Lately, it also became a major touristic attraction.
this led to the conclusion and the final question that can resume everything. That will be like, can the Southern heritage be used to bring together European countries and promoting European values in the elaboration of European narrative? So it's kind of a broad question, and I think it's the moment to really dialogue about what happened this day.
Like the government wasn't doing much, and so it's like we had a wonderful workshop organized from Patrimoine Sans Frontières, one of our partners. The project is about identities and the communism past on the Western Balkans and how to include youth in this whole narrative of Europe identity and national identity. How do they merge together, and how in nowadays this needs to be transmitted to the young generation, and they have to know about it.
I want to tell you that we have been very pleased to welcome the network of the youth of the Balkans, and we had a very, very good, intensive and workshop yesterday. But once more, these 3 days were very, very beneficial for everybody, and I hope so for the return next time.